3 days before the new year arrived, I woke before sunrise and headed to the local market. I carefully selected the finest ingredients, loading my canvas bag with fresh vegetables and herbs before returning home. Then I began preparing my son Marcus's favorite meals, herb-crusted roasted chicken and smooth, buttery mashed potatoes. The entire kitchen filled with the rich scent of rosemary and garlic. My heart raced with anticipation. I arranged the dining table perfectly, adjusted the cushions on the couch, and sat down to wait. My eyes locked on the entrance like a child expecting a special visitor. Marcus had recently completed his first year at his new corporate job after finishing university. He'd insisted on working through the final days of December to impress his supervisors. Around 7 in the evening, I heard the front door unlock. I sprang to my feet, beaming, my arms ready for an embrace. But Marcus walked right past me. He headed straight toward his father, David's arms practically throwing himself into them. "Dad, they gave me a $4,000 year-end bonus." David's expression brightened instantly, his eyes shining with satisfaction. He patted Marcus's shoulder warmly. "That's my son. I always knew you'd make it big." Just then, my in-laws, George and Patricia, hurried inside, their faces glowing with excitement. "Marcus, you're bringing such honor to this family," Patricia gushed admiringly. I stood at the edge of the room, observing as they all circled around him. Naturally, I felt proud of his accomplishment, but there was also a dull pain in my chest, the sensation of being invisible. After everything, I was the one who had nurtured him through childhood. I stepped closer, smiling gently, and touched his arm. "You must be exhausted. Are you hungry? I prepared all your favorite dishes. Let me warm everything up for you." He barely glanced in my direction. "Mum, can you stop asking ridiculous questions?" he snapped, clearly irritated. Then he crouched down, unzipped his travel bag, and pulled out a stack of carefully wrapped envelopes, arranging them prominently on the coffee table like prizes at an awards ceremony. At that exact moment, David's older sister, Karen, and her husband, Tom, entered the house. Their attention immediately went to the envelopes. "Wow, Marcus, you're really doing well for yourself," Tom said, genuinely impressed. "I'm guessing those are gifts for the family. That's very considerate of you." The moment Marcus spotted Karen, he jumped up and hugged her tightly. "Aunt Karen, I've missed you so much." I felt my body go cold. In that instant, everything became crystal clear. My son could show affection to anyone in this room, anyone except me. But what happened next would shatter me completely. And by the end of this night, I'd make a decision that would change everything forever. As everyone gathered around Marcus, he cleared his throat and smiled proudly. "To show my appreciation for all your support this year, I picked up something special for each of you." He handed his father a prepaid Visa card loaded with $1,200. Each of his grandparents received a $350 voucher for a luxury spa. His aunt and uncle each got a $250 gift card to an upscale grocery store. I remained motionless. I simply watched as he distributed the gifts, one by one, beaming with pride. Karen gently nudged him and whispered, "Sweetheart, I think you might have missed someone." Marcus tapped his temple playfully, acting as if he'd just remembered. "Oh, wow, you're absolutely right. There's one more gift in my bag somewhere." A wave of relief washed over me. So he hadn't forgotten about me after all. Perhaps he'd saved mine for the end. Perhaps it was something meaningful. I extended my hand expectantly, just as Marcus bent down, scooped up our small dog, Bailey, and cradled him in his arms. Then he slipped the final envelope into Bailey's collar and said affectionately, This one's for you, Bailey, for being such a loyal companion this year. I stood frozen in place. My smile became rigid, my hand suspended awkwardly in mid-air. After a long silence, I managed to speak softly. What about my gift, Marcus? He turned toward me, his voice calm but cutting. Mum, you're home all day doing nothing. You don't work. You have no clue how demanding my job is. Sure, you cook and clean, but that's your choice. You haven't helped me with anything that actually matters. Why would I get you a gift? Karen rushed over, pulling Marcus back toward the sofa, whispering for him to stop talking. But Marcus wasn't done yet. He smiled and pulled another surprise from his bag. Oh, and by the way, I booked flights for everyone to spend New Year's in the Bahamas. We're leaving on New Year's Day at noon. I stayed silent, thinking to myself, that's okay. No gift for me, but at least we're taking a family vacation together. Maybe that was his way of including me. He was still my son, after all. I began searching through the envelopes with everyone else, looking for my boarding pass, but couldn't locate one. I looked up at him, confused. He lifted his chin, speaking as though issuing instructions. Mum, you're staying behind. I need you to watch Bailey. He'd be miserable here by himself, and you're the perfect person for the job. That was the moment something inside me shattered completely. To my son, I wasn't even worth the cost of an airline ticket. Rage surged through my veins. I swung my arm, and the tray of cookies I'd baked crashed onto the floor. The sound exploded through the room like a siren. What I did next shocked everyone in that room and set off a chain of events that nobody saw coming. Rebecca, what on earth is wrong with you? Patricia shrieked, her voice piercing through the stunned silence. George frowned deeply with disapproval. You just destroyed the entire evening. What kind of behavior is that? David, Patricia muttered under her breath. Marrying a woman like this was the biggest mistake of your life. Marcus scowled. Oh my God, Mom. It's just a trip to the Bahamas. I'll take you next year when I get another bonus. But now you've upset everyone. Are you happy now? Tom started to speak, but Karen grabbed his hand firmly and shook her head. I let out a bitter, hollow laugh. So that's what it takes to get your attention? I have to destroy something just to remind you all that I exist? David's expression darkened, his patience clearly exhausted. Do you have any idea how absurd you're being right now? This was supposed to be a joyful family celebration. You didn't need to ruin everything. If you can't handle it, then leave. Nobody's forcing you to stay. The irony cut deep. I wasn't actually part of this family. I was the unpaid housekeeper, the one who cooked every meal, cleaned every surface, cared for the dog, and got completely ignored in return. I tore off my apron, flung it aside, marched into the bedroom, grabbed whatever clothes I could reach, and stuffed them into a duffel bag along with my wallet and identification. Just as I turned to walk out, Karen ran after me, clutching my arm. Rebecca, don't do this. It's late. Where are you planning to go? She turned back and called out, Marcus, talk to your mother. Don't let her leave like this. Marcus didn't even sit up properly. He reclined on the sofa, eyes half closed, lips curled with contempt. Let her go. She'll just run to Grandma's house like she always does. She loves creating drama and then coming back for sympathy. I stood there, stunned. Over 25 years of unconditional love and sacrifice reduced to this dismissive comment. If my mother could hear how they were speaking to me right now, it would devastate her. I pulled my arm free from Karen's grasp, walked directly out the front door, and didn't look back once. When I reached the sidewalk, I took out my phone and called my mom. Mom? I said steadily, though my voice felt empty inside. I'm not coming home for the holidays. I need some time for myself. Maybe I'll take a small trip somewhere. She paused for several seconds, then replied gently, That sounds like a wonderful idea, sweetheart. A change of environment might do you good. Just be careful, okay? Then, after a moment, she added, Remember I mentioned I was considering selling the old cottage? Well, it's finalized. The sale went through, and I've received the payment. I'll transfer some to you. She could sense something was deeply wrong, but she didn't pry. She never pressured me, just supported me quietly and completely. I said softly, Mum, I'm okay. I don't need anything right now, but thank you. If I ever do, I promise I'll ask. Thank you for always being there. She acknowledged quietly. I could almost hear her nodding through the phone. But 10 minutes later, I received a notification. She had transferred $3,500 into my account. The message read, For my dear daughter, go live your life freely. And that's when I realized something powerful. Having a mother who truly loves you means having the courage to walk away from anything that no longer respects you. That night, I checked into a small boutique hotel in the city center. For the first time in what felt like forever, I lay in a bed that belonged only to me, and I slept peacefully, without interruption. Early the next morning, as I sat beside the hotel window sipping coffee, my phone rang. It was David. I hesitated, then answered. His voice was low, but filled with frustration. Rebecca, how long are you planning to keep this up? Come home right now. I stopped by your mother's place. She said you never showed up there. I don't care where you are. Just come back. I didn't say a single word. I simply ended the call. Who did he think I was, a servant on standby, waiting for commands? Moments later, my phone buzzed repeatedly, a flood of messages from Marcus. Mum, aren't you too old to be acting like this? Disappearing just to get attention, how immature can you be? We're flying to the Bahamas tomorrow. If you don't come back, who's going to take care of Bailey? If anything happens to him, I'll never forgive you. I stared at his words, a bitter smile forming on my lips. This was my son, the child I had raised with my own hands, talking to me like this. Once, I saw him as my greatest treasure. Now he saw me only as a burden, a helper, a convenience. Tears filled my eyes again, but I let them fall freely, and I promised myself it would be the last time. I remembered him as a little boy, sweet and full of affection. He used to wrap his small arms around my neck and whisper, Mom, you're the best mom in the entire world. When I grow up, I'll buy you the most beautiful house. I could still feel his tiny body curled up in my lap, soft and smiling. But after elementary school, everything began to shift. His grades started slipping, and David said he needed more focused attention at home. David pressured me to quit my job, and I did. I became a full-time mother, sacrificing everything else for him. But the older Marcus grew, the colder he became toward me. I still remember the day he stormed into the house, absolutely furious. Stop coming to parent-teacher meetings, Mom. Everyone knows you're just a stay-at-home mom. It's embarrassing. You can't even help me with algebra. You don't earn money, and you still argue with Dad. What's the point of you? I kept telling myself, he's just young. One day, he'll understand. I waited through middle school, through high school, through university. I believed that once he entered the working world, he'd finally recognize everything I'd done for him. But no, this was what I received in return, 25 years of silent, invisible sacrifice. And now, here I was, looking at messages from a son I could barely recognize anymore. 2 days later, on New Year's Day, Marcus sent me his final messages. Well done. You've officially ruined everyone's plans. We're leaving at noon. Don't bother coming back. If you're not home by then, don't expect to be my mother anymore. Perfect. Because I was about to stop being his mother too. What I did next would shock them all, and there would be no going back. I opened my email and sent David the finalized divorce documents I had quietly prepared over the past several months. Just one line in the message. Please sign these soon. If you refuse, I'll proceed through the courts. Then I turned off my phone completely, grabbed my suitcase, and walked straight out the door, heading directly to the airport. And just like that, I boarded a plane to Iceland, a land of ice and silence, to experience the first real vacation of my entire life. Later, I learned that David panicked the moment he saw the divorce papers. He called me repeatedly, but all he reached was the same automated voicemail message. The number you have dialed is currently unavailable. Meanwhile, Marcus seemed calm, even confident. He patted David's shoulder reassuringly. Dad, don't worry. This is just Mum's way of trying to manipulate us into giving in. Classic control tactics. She's a housewife who hasn't left the house in years. Do you honestly think she's getting divorced? Just let her sit wherever she is for a while. It'll teach her a lesson. She'll realize who's really in charge here. Patricia nodded from across the room. She's gotten far too spoiled, she muttered. George added with a sarcastic chuckle. Divorce? Please. What kind of life does she think she'll have without my son? And with that, the entire family cheerfully loaded their luggage into the car and headed to the airport, ready to start their vacation as if nothing had happened. That evening, after they arrived at the resort, I saw Marcus post a photograph from the beachside restaurant, champagne glasses raised, bright smiles all around, the image of a perfect family getaway. I looked at the photo, then calmly turned off my phone. Meanwhile, I was sitting around a crackling bonfire in the Icelandic wilderness, with a group of new friends, all bundled up in thick winter coats, clinking beer bottles together, laughing freely under the open sky. Snowflakes drifted gently around us, and above, the northern lights danced brilliantly across the darkness. No obligations, no roles to perform, just freedom, the kind I hadn't felt in 25 years. I let out a quiet laugh and whispered to myself, being young is nice, but being free, that's so much better. I took several pictures of the aurora and posted them on Instagram with a short caption. Feels like a dream. You only get one life, live it for yourself. Less than a minute later, I received a new voicemail notification. It was Marcus. His voice was sharp and furious. How could you do this? Are you using Dad's money to go on some solo vacation? I've worked all year and barely saved anything, and you're just out there spending freely. Do you even care about anyone but yourself? You're so incredibly selfish. I didn't listen to the rest. I deleted it immediately. But he was right about one thing: I was being selfish. And for once in my life, it felt absolutely wonderful. To breathe freely, to live on my own terms. I only regretted not doing it sooner. Then I posted another photo, my boarding pass for a flight to Norway. And that's when Marcus finally broke. Marcus started calling non-stop, leaving frantic messages demanding explanations. Why did you run away? Why are you wasting money? Why are you acting like a child? I didn't answer a single call. Eventually, I blocked his number entirely. Later, I discovered he changed his flight and cut his Bahamas trip short from 7 days down to just 2. The next evening, he burst into my mother's house and broke down crying in the living room. Grandma, Mum is so selfish. She ran off to Europe while we were trying to celebrate as a family. She's cut us all off. She's spending all of Dad's hard-earned money, and now she's even blocked me. You have to make her see reason." My mother sat in silence for a long moment, then looked up and said calmly, "Let me ask you something. When your entire family flew to the Bahamas, did any of you ask if your mother wanted to come?" Marcus froze. His mouth opened, but no words came out. David jumped in quickly, trying to smooth things over. "See? You've misunderstood. Rebecca said she didn't want to go. She was trying to save money." My mother let out a dry, sharp laugh. "Funny. You just said she was spending too much, and now she's saving? Which is it? Let me make something perfectly clear. You don't get to mistreat my daughter anymore. She has me, and with my support, she'll never need anyone's pity or your scraps." Then she stood up, pointed at the front door, and said in a steady, unwavering voice, "Get out." David and Marcus left with their heads bowed, shuffling silently out of the house. Sitting in the car afterward, David suddenly frowned. "Wait a second," he said slowly. "Didn't your grandmother mention she wanted to sell the old cottage? From the way she spoke today, she probably already did. And if that's true, then she must have given all that money to your mother." Marcus's face went pale. "What? Grandma sold her cottage? That place was worth a fortune. Don't tell me Mum used that money to file for divorce and run away. No way. We have to get that money back." From that day forward, Marcus changed completely. The arrogance and smugness vanished overnight. He texted me every single day, asking how I was feeling, whether I was happy, how the weather was, and when I planned to return home. He thought that with a few sweet words, I'd soften up like I always had before. But not this time. I didn't reply for days. One evening, he sent a voice message, his tone trembling with quiet sobs. "Mum, I was wrong. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. I was just angry. I didn't think you'd actually leave. Please come home. I promise I'll change." I listened to the entire message and smiled faintly. He still didn't understand. I didn't leave over a plane ticket. I left because I finally saw the truth. I meant absolutely nothing to them, and I would never go back to that place again. But Marcus wasn't done trying, and what happened next revealed his true intentions. A month later, I returned home. When I walked through the door, David looked like a drowning man who had just spotted a lifeboat. He quickly called out, "She's back. Hurry. Get here now. If she signs the final settlement, we'll lose access to the $900,000 tied to her trust fund." Marcus arrived almost immediately. As soon as he saw me, he ran up with open arms. "Mum, you're back? I missed you so much." I raised my hand, stopping him before he could embrace me. Calmly, I pulled the divorce papers from my purse and placed them on the table. My voice was steady and clear. "Sign them. Keep the house, the car, and the son. I don't need anything." David's smile vanished instantly. His face went pale. "Rebecca, how can you do this? Do you have any idea how hard I've worked for this family? You've lived comfortably at home for 25 years, and now you want to throw it all away because you feel left out? Is that really worth ending a marriage?" I met his eyes coldly. "You think being a housewife is easy? You think Marcus turned out like this by accident? You're the one who pressured me to quit my job to stay home and raise him. You're the one who taught him to look down on me, to call me useless because I didn't bring home a paycheck. Your parents mocked me repeatedly, and you never once defended me. And now you dare call me a freeloader?" David's face twisted with anger. His voice turned sharp. "If your mother didn't have her inheritance money, none of this would be happening. She's the one funding your little rebellion." Marcus, who had been pretending to be remorseful, snapped instantly. "Dad's right. You got money. And now you think you're better than us. Have you ever even thought about how you've treated us? I looked at him, my voice calm but cutting. Marcus, I just hoped you'd learn to think for yourself instead of repeating everything your father says. I gave you everything not so you could look down on me. He fell silent. I turned to both of them and said slowly, "If you don't sign, I'll take it to court. I'm prepared." Then I turned around, opened the door, and walked out without looking back. In that moment, I knew I was finally free, and I would never return. The next morning, David and Marcus showed up at my mother's house. Later, she told me they looked exactly the same as always, with the same pleading voices, only the setting had changed. Yesterday, they had played the victims in front of me. Today, they were begging my mother, trying to manipulate through her instead. "Like father? Like son?" my mother said calmly. She didn't let them inside. Standing in the doorway, she placed her warm cup of tea on the small table by the entrance and said evenly, "Rebecca is simply exhausted after being pushed too far for too long. She hasn't done anything wrong." Marcus froze, then forced an awkward smile. "Grandma, we're just worried Mom might do something impulsive. Financially, I mean." David quickly added, "Yeah, exactly. We're only trying to protect the family's assets. She's just a little too emotional right now." My mother was silent for a moment, then smiled a thin, knowing smile that made both of them stiffen. Her tone was soft, but sharp as a blade. "Ah, so that's what this is really about. You came here to ask about the money, didn't you?" And what she said next left them speechless. My mother continued firmly, "I've already spoken with my attorney. Rebecca is an adult, fully capable of managing her own affairs. If you came here hoping to extract something from me, don't waste your time." She paused deliberately, then said each word clearly, like the steady strike of a hammer. "Stop treating her like a helpless housewife. She knows how to protect herself now, legally and otherwise." The door didn't slam shut, but when it clicked into place, the silence that followed was heavier than steel. That afternoon, I spent hours in my mother's study. On the desk were folders sent by my attorney trust fund documents, bank statements, financial reports. I stared at them for a long time, feeling overwhelmed. The papers in front of me weren't something someone else handed me with instructions to sign on a dotted line. They were mine. I was the one making the decisions now. My mother stood by the bookshelf, holding a teacup, her voice calm and steady. "This money was originally meant for your future, to ensure you'd always have something to rely on. But it seems you need it now." She walked over, sat beside me, and placed her warm, fragile hand on mine. "Your father and I realized too late that we should have protected ourselves sooner. By the time we learned that lesson, it was almost too late. But you, my dear, you still have time." A lump rose in my throat, but my eyes stayed dry. The pain was too deep for tears. I picked up the pen. I wasn't signing an insurance policy for David, or a bank guarantee, or a joint property document. I was signing my own name for myself. I was the sole owner of that trust fund, and my hand didn't tremble even slightly. That day, I did many important things. I froze all joint accounts with David. I opened a new account solely under my name. I updated my will and removed both David and Marcus from any financial access. I emailed Janet, my best friend from university, and now my attorney, with detailed instructions to proceed with the divorce. Janet had the mind of a legal encyclopedia and the loyalty of a sister. I called my financial advisor and activated enhanced verification. No transaction could be made without my direct approval and signature. A week after finalizing the financial separation, Marcus reached out again. His voicemail sounded light and sweet, as if nothing had happened. Mum, you're amazing Iceland and Norway just by yourself. I really admire that. Maybe next time we can go together? I didn't reply. The next day came another message, more tense. Mum, things aren't going well right now. My company's downsizing. I might be out of work for a while. Can I stay with you for a bit? I still said nothing. I wanted to see exactly how far he'd take this. 2 days later, he sent a picture of his maxed out credit card statement, along with the message, "My card hit the limit. I wish I hadn't spent so much. I miss you, Mum." I almost laughed. Do you miss me, or do you miss my money? I knew this playbook by heart. The tears, the apologies, the guilt trips, then the requests. If I gave in even once, the cycle would begin all over again. I ignored him. But I saved every message and voicemail, took screenshots, and backed everything up. Because I knew the remorse phase would soon turn into something much darker. Sure enough, on the 5th day, Marcus called. The moment I picked up, his voice trembled dramatically. Mum, I can't take it anymore. I fell down the stairs outside my apartment building today. Nobody helped me. I was lying there, and all I wanted was to call you. I said nothing. After a few seconds, his tone shifted sharper now, more aggressive. Mum, did you change the bank password? I tried to log in to check the utility bill and it says, access denied. I smiled faintly and replied evenly, I upgraded the account's security, per the bank's recommendation. Identity theft is quite common these days. His voice shot up immediately. Mum, I'm your son. Are you saying you're protecting your account from me? I stayed calm. If you really want to help, send me the documents I requested last month, and never touch my accounts again. Silence hung for a few seconds. Then he let out a bitter laugh. So now I'm an outsider? I answered quietly. You made yourself one the day you started treating me like an ATM. There was a loud clack. He'd slammed the phone down, followed by his scream echoing through the line. You think you're so righteous. That trust fund isn't just yours. You lived off Dad's money your entire life. And now, after the divorce, you're keeping it all? Exactly. He didn't want me. He wanted control, money, inheritance. I tapped the screen and turned on the call recorder. My tone stayed cool and steady. Marcus, you do realize this call is being recorded, right? I'll be sending it to my attorney to request a no-contact order. The line went silent. Then I heard muffled sobs, turning into full-blown crying. Mum, you're cruel. Did you forget? When I had that high fever as a kid, you stayed by my bed all night. You didn't sleep at all. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I took a deep breath. I remember, I said softly. I remember not drinking a sip of water that night because I was afraid you'd wake up and not see me there. I remember you at 5 years old, saying you'd buy me a mansion one day. I remember you at 10, promising to take me to the Bahamas. I paused, my voice growing colder. But I also remember when you told me you were embarrassed that I was just a stay-at-home mum, when you banned me from school meetings, when you called me useless because I didn't earn money. He screamed, So you're cutting me off over that? My voice turned icy. No, I left because you used my love as leverage, because you treated affection like a bargaining chip. I can forgive immaturity, but I won't be emotionally blackmailed ever again. I ended the call, blocked his number, deleted all contact channels, and set up filters to prevent him from creating new accounts to reach me. I didn't leave a single trace of connection. That night, I opened the refrigerator and saw the jar of homemade jam I'd made a few days earlier, while still hoping he might come to apologize. I took it out and threw it straight into the trash. I wasn't keeping anything anymore, not even hope. The next morning, everything escalated. David made his move, and it was even more ruthless than I expected. The next morning, as I was pouring my coffee, Janet called. "Rebecca, your husband just made his move," she said. "David filed a motion claiming partial rights to your trust fund. He's arguing that since the money your mother transferred arrived during your marriage, it qualifies as marital property." I let out a dry laugh. Of course he did. How much lower can he possibly go? But the truth was absolutely clear. My mother had transferred the money after I left the house, after I had completely separated my finances from David. It wasn't a wedding gift or a joint investment. It was her support when I needed it most. The transfer note even stated explicitly, "For my dear daughter, go live your life freely." Everything was dated, verified, and traceable. David was deliberately twisting the timeline, trying to reframe the funds as marital property simply because the divorce wasn't finalized on paper yet. I glanced through the packet his attorney sent. It was pathetic. In the claim, David wrote, "The funds transferred by the mother-in-law during the marriage should be considered jointly owned marital assets." And at the end, he added smugly, "I have no objection to using these funds to support the family and secure our son's future." Family? Or his next luxury vacation? Janet and I got to work immediately. We submitted every document the transfer date, 2 weeks after I moved out. The new bank account solely under my name, David's complete lack of access to it. Most importantly, we attached the original message from my mother that still sat in my phone. "Don't give him a single cent. For the first time in your life, spend money for yourself." This wasn't a financial fight anymore. David wasn't afraid of losing the marriage, he was afraid of losing control. On the day of the hearing, he walked in wearing the same grey suit he'd worn at our wedding. I almost laughed at the audacity. The judge reviewed the documents carefully. David's lawyer argued passionately about marital contributions and shared assets. But when the judge asked for proof that the funds were transferred as a gift to both of us, David had nothing. The transfer was direct. The account was mine alone. The timing was crystal clear. The judge ruled in my favor. The funds in question were transferred after the separation of assets and were designated specifically for Mrs. Rebecca Thompson. They do not qualify as marital property. David's face turned white. Marcus, who had been sitting in the back row, stood up abruptly and walked out. Outside the courthouse, David grabbed my arm. "Rebecca, please, let's talk about this. We can still fix things." I pulled my arm free. "There's nothing to fix, David. You made your choices. Now live with them." Janet stepped between us. "Mr. Thompson, any further contact with my client will be considered harassment. Please sign the divorce papers, or we'll proceed with the court-finalized divorce." David finally signed the papers that evening. And just like that, after 25 years, I was free. But the story wasn't over yet, because Marcus had one final card to play. 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Marcus showed up at my new apartment unannounced. I'd moved into a small but bright place near the city center, somewhere that felt like mine, with large windows and clean, open spaces. When I opened the door and saw him standing there, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness. "Mum, can we talk?" he asked quietly. I stepped aside and let him in, but I didn't offer him a seat or a drink. He stood awkwardly in the middle of the living room, looking around at my new life, the travel photos on the wall, the books stacked on the coffee table, the sense of peace that filled the space. "I've been thinking a lot," he began. About everything that happened, about what I said to you. I crossed my arms and waited. He took a deep breath. I was wrong. I know that now. I took you for granted. I treated you like you didn't matter. And I'm sorry. For a moment, I almost believed him. Almost. But then he continued. So, I was thinking, maybe we could start over? I could visit more often. We could grab dinner sometimes. And maybe, he hesitated, maybe you could help me out a little, just until I get back on my feet financially. There it was. The real reason he came. I smiled sadly. Marcus, do you know why I left? He looked confused. Because we didn't appreciate you enough? No, I said quietly. I left because you made me feel like I didn't exist. Like my only value was what I could do for you. And even now, after everything, you still don't see me as a person. You see me as a resource. His face flushed. That's not fair. I'm your son. Isn't it normal for parents to help their children? I shook my head. Help? Yes. Be taken advantage of? No. You're 26 years old, Marcus. You have a degree, work experience, and every advantage I never had. What you don't have is accountability, and I can't give that to you. He stared at me, his jaw tight. So that's it? You're just done with me? I felt tears prick my eyes, but I blinked them back. I'm done being disrespected. I'm done being invisible. If you want a relationship with me, Marcus, it has to be built on mutual respect, not obligation, not guilt, and definitely not money. He stood there for a long moment, and I could see the struggle on his face, the part of him that wanted to understand battling against the part that had been raised to see me as less than. Finally, he turned toward the door. I need time to think, he said quietly. Take all the time you need, I replied. But understand this, I'm not waiting anymore. I've spent 25 years waiting for you to see me. Now I'm choosing to see myself. He paused at the door, his hand on the knob, then walked out without another word. After he left, I sat by the window and looked out at the city lights. For the first time in my entire adult life, I felt truly at peace. Not because I had cut my son out of my life, but because I had finally chosen myself. But 6 months later, something completely unexpected happened. And it would change everything between us in a way I never imagined. 6 months passed. 6 months of therapy, travel, new friendships, and rediscovering who Rebecca Thompson actually was beneath all those years of being Mom and Mrs. Thompson. I took a pottery class. I joined a book club. I even started learning Italian online, planning a trip to Tuscany in the fall. My relationship with my mother grew even stronger. We had dinner together twice a week, and she watched me bloom with a quiet pride that needed no words. Janet became not just my attorney, but one of my closest friends. And slowly, carefully, I began to build a life that was entirely my own. One evening in early autumn, as I was arranging fresh flowers in my apartment, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Marcus standing there, but he looked different. Humbler. Tired, but in a way that suggested growth rather than defeat. Hi, Mum, he said softly. Do you have a few minutes? I nodded and let him in. This time I offered him tea. We sat across from each other at my small dining table, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. I've been seeing a therapist, he finally said, for the past 4 months. I raised my eyebrows, surprised. Dad didn't want me to, said it was a waste of money and that I didn't need it. But I knew I did. I had to understand why I became the person I became. He looked down at his hands. I've been unpacking a lot. About how Dad treated you. About how Grandma and Grandpa treated you. about how I learned to treat you. His voice cracked slightly. And I'm horrified, Mom. I'm horrified by the things I said to you, by how I made you feel invisible, by how I valued everyone's opinion except yours. I stayed quiet, letting him continue. My therapist helped me see that I learned to devalue you because everyone around me did. And instead of questioning it, I just absorbed it. I became exactly like Dad. He looked up at me, his eyes red. And I don't want to be like him anymore. Tears finally spilled down my cheeks. Not tears of pain this time, but something else, something like hope, fragile but real. Marcus, I appreciate you saying this. I really do. But words are just the beginning. I know, he said quickly. I know that. And I'm not asking you to forgive me right away, or to let me back into your life like nothing happened. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see you. And I'm working on becoming someone worthy of being your son. I reached across the table and placed my hand over his. You were always worthy of being my son, Marcus. You just forgot that I was worthy of being your mother. He nodded, wiping his eyes. Can I call you sometimes? Maybe we could have coffee once a month. I want to rebuild this, slowly, the right way. I smiled softly. I'd like that. But Marcus, if you ever disrespect me again, if you ever treat me like I don't matter, I will walk away. And next time, it will be permanent. I understand, he said firmly. I promise, Mum. I'm done being that person. We talked for over an hour that evening. He told me about his new job, about cutting ties with David, about setting boundaries with his grandparents. I told him about my pottery class, about my upcoming trip to Italy, about the life I was building for myself. When he left, he hugged me at the door. Really hugged me, not the obligatory performative embraces of before. I love you, Mum, he whispered. I'm sorry it took me so long to show it. I love you too, I replied. And I'm proud of you for doing this work. Over the following months, we rebuilt our relationship slowly and carefully. Coffee once a month became dinner every few weeks. He started asking about my life, my interests, my dreams, not out of obligation, but genuine curiosity. He apologized to my mother, who accepted with cautious optimism. He even started therapy with a family counselor, just the two of us, to work through our shared history. It wasn't perfect. There were difficult conversations, moments of tension, old wounds that needed time to heal. But it was real, and it was built on something we'd never had before: mutual respect. A year after our first conversation in my apartment, Marcus called me on a Saturday morning. Mum, I'm getting married, he said, his voice full of nervous excitement. And I was wondering, would you walk me down the aisle? I know traditionally it's the father, but you're the one who raised me. You're the one who deserves that honor. I cried happy tears this time. I would be honored, Marcus. Truly honored. On his wedding day, as we stood together in the church hallway waiting for our cue, he turned to me and said quietly, Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. I squeezed his arm. Thank you for finding your way back. As we walked down that aisle together, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Complete. Not because my son had come back to me, but because I had found myself. And in finding myself, I had created space for a relationship built on love, respect, and genuine connection. That night, at the reception, I sat at a table with my mother, Janet, and my new friends from the book club. Marcus came over and introduced his new wife, Sophie, who hugged me warmly and said, Marcus has told me so much about you. Thank you for raising such a wonderful man. I smiled. He did most of that work himself. Later, As I drove home under the stars, I thought about everything that had happened: the pain, the betrayal, the courage it took to walk away, the loneliness, the fear, the gradual rebuilding of my life. And I realized something profound. Sometimes the greatest act of love isn't holding on, it's letting go. Letting go of who you thought you should be. Letting go of relationships that diminish you. Letting go of the need for others' approval. Because when you finally let go, you create space for something beautiful. The chance to become who you were always meant to be. I pulled into my parking space, looked up at my apartment window, warm light glowing from within, and smiled. I was home. Not the home I had left, but the one I had built for myself. And it was exactly where I belonged.